Closeness for someone with avoidant tendencies is not just a matter of physical nearness, but an act of profound courage. Many people take closeness for granted, assuming it is natural and effortless in love. For the avoidant, however, closeness can feel suffocating, risky, even threatening to their sense of autonomy. They grow up learning that distance protects them from rejection or disappointment, so they create a world where independence is their shield. Yet when they meet someone who begins to feel like the one, the rules quietly shift. Closeness stops being an intrusion and begins to feel like a choice, an offering, a gift that they do not extend to just anyone. It becomes their way of saying, "You matter more than my fear." In practice, this closeness shows up in subtle but significant ways. The avoidant may invite you into spaces they usually guard, perhaps their home, their personal routines, or even their silence. They let you see them in unpolished moments, the mornings without a mask of perfection, the nights when exhaustion shows on their face. For them, this vulnerability is the ultimate gesture of trust. It means they no longer see you as a threat to their independence, but as someone safe enough to share the parts of themselves they usually protect. They begin to soften the invisible walls, and while those walls may never completely vanish, cracks begin to appear in places where only you are allowed through. Closeness also emerges emotionally. Avoidants are often known for keeping conversations on the surface, for dodging questions that require vulnerability. But when they feel you are the one, they start to lean into conversations that matter. They share fragments of their past, the disappointments that shape their guardedness, the fears they never dared voice. They may not pour everything out at once, but piece by piece, the puzzle of who they truly are comes into view. And if you notice them listening more, asking about your inner world, holding on to the details of your stories, it's a sign they are investing not just time, but emotional presence. For them, closeness is not measured by hours spent together, but by the willingness to open their inner life to another soul. What makes this closeness extraordinary is that it goes against the avoidance instincts. To them, closeness carries risk of being let down, of being controlled, of losing the freedom that makes them feel safe. Yet when they begin to overcome those instincts, it is proof of how deeply they value the connection. They are not simply enduring closeness, they are choosing it. That choice marks a turning point, a quiet declaration that you are not just another partner, but someone who has shifted the way they see relationships altogether. The avoidance decision to let you in becomes their most powerful statement of commitment. It is easy to mistake an avoidance hesitation as lack of love, but the opposite is often true. Their journey toward closeness is slower, layered with caution, but once they arrive, it carries a weight that cannot be faked. When they sit with you without running, when they reach for your hand without overthinking, when they linger in moments instead of planning their escape, they are telling you something vital. Closeness has become more valuable than distance. And in their world, that is as strong a promise as love can ever give. Vulnerability is love's language, and nowhere is this more apparent than in relationships with avoidant partners. For someone who has built their life around self-protection, maintaining distance, and keeping emotions carefully contained, opening up feels like exposing a wound that has never fully healed. To understand why this is so powerful, you must first understand what vulnerability means to an avoidant. It is not simply talking about a bad day or expressing frustration. It is allowing another person to see the fragile places within, the ones they have spent years guarding. When an avoidant finally chooses to let down their walls, it is not accidental, it is intentional, deliberate, and profound, signaling that they have decided you are worthy of trust and that they believe you will hold their truth with care. When someone avoids vulnerability, they are often motivated by fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of being misunderstood. Many avoidants learned early in life that sharing too much led to pain, abandonment, or criticism. Over time, this fear hardens into a habit, a survival strategy that keeps them safe, but also keeps them distant. Yet when they encounter a partner who feels like the one, something shifts inside them. They begin to test the waters, maybe by sharing a small detail about their past, a quiet insecurity, or a moment of doubt. It may seem insignificant on the surface, but in truth, these confessions are monumental. To the avoidant, vulnerability is equivalent to saying, "I trust you not to hurt me." and that is the purest expression of love they can give. The beauty of vulnerability is that it builds intimacy in ways no grand gesture ever could. Gifts, words, and promises all have their place, but nothing binds two people together like the courage to be seen fully. For the avoidant, this might look like admitting they feel unworthy of love, or that they struggle with the fear of abandonment. It might sound like a quiet confession of loneliness, or an admission of how much they truly need you. These are the moments where the walls fall and the real person is revealed. In those moments, the relationship deepens, because vulnerability is not weakness, it is the highest form of strength. It says, I am willing to risk showing you the parts of me that I hide from the rest of the world, because loving you matters more than protecting myself. When avoidants open up in this way, they are not only proving their love, but also allowing love to transform them. Vulnerability softens the edges of their guardedness, teaching them that intimacy does not have to equal pain. In fact, the act of sharing makes them realize that connection is safer than isolation. By trusting you with their innermost truths, they begin to rewrite the story they have carried for so long, the story that says no one will understand, no one will stay, and no one can handle the real them. Your acceptance becomes the evidence that this story is no longer true, and that realization is life-changing. Vulnerability is the invisible thread that ties two souls together. For an avoidant, speaking that language means breaking decades of habit, facing their deepest fears, and choosing love over self-protection. It is not always easy, and it may come slowly, but when it does, it carries more meaning than 1,000 declarations. To witness an avoidant being vulnerable is to witness love in its rarest form. It is an act of courage, a gift of trust, and a declaration that they believe you are the one person who can hold their heart without breaking it. That is why vulnerability, especially from someone who has spent a lifetime hiding, is the clearest and most powerful language of love. Consistency over distance is one of the most profound shifts you will ever notice in someone with avoidant tendencies, and it speaks volumes about the depth of their feelings. People who fall into avoidant patterns often rely on distance as their survival mechanism. They retreat when emotions grow too strong, when intimacy feels suffocating, or when the fear of being vulnerable begins to creep in. Pulling away is not usually about rejection of the other person, but rather a deep instinct to protect themselves from disappointment, pain, or even abandonment. For someone like this, distance feels safe, it is predictable, it is manageable, and it ensures that they remain in control of their emotions. But when they meet someone who matters, when they recognize they have found the one, something subtle yet extraordinary begins to happen. They replace that distance with consistency. Consistency, in this sense, is not about grand gestures or constant attention. It is about reliability. It is about showing up when they said they would, calling back when they promised to, and no longer disappearing for days just to regain control over their emotions. An avoidant who has decided that you are worth the risk begins to prioritize stability over escape. Their pattern of withdrawing begins to shift because they realize that the relationship is no longer a threat to their independence, but rather a safe place where they can exist fully. This change is significant because consistency is the opposite of what they have always relied on. Where distance kept them safe, consistency now keeps the relationship alive. It may show in the smallest of ways. You might notice they check in during the day just to see how you are, even though such behavior used to feel unnecessary or burdensome to them. You may realize they are physically present more often, not leaving without explanation or needing constant time alone. Their rhythm starts to match yours, as though they are carefully learning how to balance their natural instinct for space with the growing desire to stay close. Consistency for them is a declaration that you matter more than the fear of being engulfed. It is a quiet promise that they are no longer looking for the exits when things get hard, but are instead learning to sit with the discomfort of intimacy because the bond is worth it. The beauty of this shift is that it does not happen overnight. Avoidants do not suddenly erase years of coping mechanisms just because they care for someone. But what they will do is choose again and again to stay present. When conflicts arise, instead of disappearing until the storm passes, they begin to engage, even if awkwardly. When plans are made, they begin to follow through rather than cancel at the last moment. And when emotions run high, Instead of withdrawing into silence, they might surprise you with a conversation, an apology, or even just their physical presence beside you. Each of these moments is an act of consistency, a small victory over the urge to distance themselves, and together they add up to something powerful. Consistency over distance is ultimately a love story in itself. It is the tale of someone choosing connection over self-protection, reliability over avoidance, and commitment over fear. For the avoidant, this shift is not casual, it is monumental. It means they have decided that you are worth the vulnerability, worth the risk, and worth the effort of learning a new way to love. And for the person who receives this gift, it is a reminder that love does not always arrive in loud declarations or sweeping romantic gestures. Sometimes love is in the steady presence, the answered call, the kept promise, and the quiet act of showing up day after day. Future-focused intentions are one of the clearest indicators that an avoidant partner sees you not just as someone they care about in the present, but as someone they can envision walking beside them for years to come. For a person who typically thrives on independence and avoids the heaviness of emotional entanglement, planning the future is not just casual talk. It is a declaration. Avoidants are known for their discomfort with commitment, not because they lack the capacity to love, but because attachment triggers old fears of dependency, rejection, or loss. Their instinct is to keep the present light, to enjoy companionship without the weight of expectation. Yet, when they begin weaving you into the fabric of their tomorrow, you are witnessing something rare, the gradual dismantling of their protective walls in favor of hope. When an avoidant starts making plans with you, it may not look like dramatic, sweeping gestures at first. It could be as subtle as asking what your weekend looks like 3 weeks from now, or suggesting a trip together months down the line. These small acts are monumental because they reflect a shift from a short-term mindset to a vision that includes you in their long-term narrative. A person who once avoided calendars and commitments now wants to anchor you into their time, their energy, and their life. The weight of that should not be underestimated. It is not just about scheduling, it is about trust. Trust that you will still be there. Trust that the bond is worth nurturing. Trust that the risk of disappointment is worth taking for the possibility of deeper love. This future orientation also reveals itself in the way they speak. Instead of keeping conversations anchored in the moment, avoidants may begin using language that signals permanence. They might say, "Next year we should," or "when we move forward," or even "I can see us doing this together." These statements are more than idle talk. They are careful disclosures of their inner world, a sign that their guarded heart is cautiously placing you at the center of their unfolding story. It is not easy for them to surrender the illusion of self-sufficiency, but when they start crafting a vision that includes your happiness alongside theirs, you can be sure that you hold a place in their future that no one else does. Introducing you to family or close friends is another powerful expression of future-focused intentions. For an avoidant, such introductions carry weight because they are not simply showing you off, they are allowing you into their most intimate circles, places they usually protect fiercely. By bridging the gap between their private life and the relationship, they are implicitly saying, "You are not temporary. I want the people I care about to know you because you will be here." This step transforms the relationship from something personal and contained into something integrated and recognized, solidifying the bond with roots that reach beyond just the two of you. It is important to understand that for avoidance, these gestures are acts of courage. Where others might rush into grand romantic promises, avoidants measure every step carefully, and when they commit to something in the future, it is deeply intentional. They have fought their own instincts to retreat and chosen instead to lean in. They are saying, without always using the words, that you have shifted the balance of their inner world. You are no longer just a comforting presence in the moment, but a partner they want to build alongside, despite the risks that intimacy brings. In truth, future-focused intentions are not just about plans, but about belonging. They mean that the avoidant has begun to see you not as an intruder in their independence, but as a companion in their journey. Each plan, each vision, each introduction is a piece of evidence that they are letting go of fear and embracing love's possibility. And when an avoidant with all their resistance and hesitation, chooses to place you in their future, it is not only a sign that you are the one, it is perhaps the deepest gift of love they know how to give. Conflict and apology often carry a weight in relationships that goes far beyond the words exchanged in a heated moment. For someone with avoidant tendencies, these two elements take on an even deeper significance. Avoidants are not naturally inclined to step into conflict. They are wired to withdraw, protect themselves, and create distance whenever emotional intensity feels overwhelming. Confrontation feels unsafe because it threatens their sense of control, their carefully guarded independence, and the protective walls they have built over time. Yet when they begin to see someone as truly the one, their behavior in conflict shifts dramatically. They no longer see confrontation as something to run from, but as a necessary part of preserving the connection they value. Staying engaged during a disagreement becomes an act of love, a choice to risk discomfort rather than risk losing the relationship. When avoidants choose to remain present during conflict, it is not just about resolving the issue at hand, it is about breaking their own patterns of escape. Imagine a person who has spent years finding solace in withdrawal, suddenly resisting the urge to shut down because you matter enough to fight through the discomfort. That moment is not ordinary. It is a milestone of growth. It signifies that their feelings for you outweigh their instinct to self-protect. It's a quiet but powerful way of saying, you are worth the struggle. It is in these moments that the avoidant shows they are not just protecting themselves anymore, they are protecting the bond. And this shift is monumental because it requires them to unlearn the habits that once defined their emotional survival. Apology, too, takes on a transformative role. For many avoidants, apologizing can feel like surrender. Admitting fault means exposing vulnerability, acknowledging imperfection, and inviting the possibility of rejection. It is risky business for someone whose default mode is to maintain control and distance. Yet when they care deeply, apology becomes less about losing and more about preserving. To say, "I'm sorry," is to prioritize love over pride. It is to recognize that the health of the relationship is more important than appearing invulnerable. In that single act, the avoidant demonstrates growth that transcends their old patterns. They are learning that humility strengthens bonds rather than weakens them. This combination of staying through conflict and offering apology creates an entirely new dynamic in their relationship. The avoidant, once defined by silence or retreat, now demonstrates resilience and emotional maturity. For the partner, these moments may feel surprising, even shocking, because they represent such a contrast to the avoidant's earlier behaviors. But for the avoidant, it is a deliberate act of transformation. They are not changing because conflict suddenly feels easy. They are changing because you matter so much that they are willing to endure what feels uncomfortable for the sake of something greater. That is the true power of love, its ability to inspire growth where growth once seemed impossible. Ultimately, conflict and apology become more than moments of tension or regret. They become proof of devotion. They reveal that an avoidant has stepped outside their old identity. Choosing connection over self-preservation, this growth is not loud or dramatic. It is subtle, patient, and deeply meaningful. In staying present during disagreements and in voicing apologies, avoidants show that love has transformed them. They are no longer protecting only themselves. They are protecting we. And in that shift, there is beauty, vulnerability, and a declaration of commitment far stronger than words alone could ever express. Love expressed in action is not about grand gestures or dramatic displays, but rather about the small, deliberate choices that add up to something profound. For someone with avoidant tendencies, words often come harder than actions, and declarations of love may feel too vulnerable or risky. Yet when they know you are the one, their actions start to take on a different weight. They might not always say, "I love you," as easily as others, but they begin to demonstrate it in ways that are undeniable. A call returned when they would normally stay silent, a moment of showing up when escape would have been easier, a sacrifice of comfort to make sure you feel secure. These are the quiet but powerful signals of love lived out in real time. Their way of loving is not about volume. It is about consistency, about proving that you matter through presence rather than just promises. For the avoidant, prioritizing another person is not natural. Their instinct is self-protection, independence, and retreat. But when you are the one, you notice that they begin to act differently. They might remember the little details about your day, check in even when they are busy, or take care of things without being asked. These small acts may not seem monumental at first, but they carry deep meaning because they require them to shift out of their comfort zone. Each time they step toward you instead of away from you, it is a decision, an act of courage, and an expression of love. Love expressed in action is a form of proof. They are saying, I may not always speak it, but I am showing you that you are worth my effort. There is also something sacred in the way avoidants express love when they know it is real. For a person who guards their vulnerability so carefully, to let you see them in moments of raw honesty is already an action of love. When they apologize, when they stay in the room during an argument instead of shutting down, when they choose to lean in rather than leave, they are showing you the depth of their commitment. These actions are not casual, they are rare. And that rarity gives them power. Because they are not offered to just anyone, you can trust that when you receive them, they are genuine. It is love translated into behavior, love that cannot be denied because it is lived and felt. What makes love expressed in action so moving is that it often happens quietly. You may not notice it at first. It may not look like roses or sweeping romantic speeches. Instead, it is them standing by your side at the moment you need it most. It is the way they hold space for your fears and listen when it would be easier to withdraw. It is the way they soften their edges and let you in despite every instinct telling them to run. Each act becomes a thread, and over time, those threads weave a fabric of trust, safety, and devotion. For someone who avoids attachment, this is no small feat. It is transformation through love. Ultimately, love expressed in action by an avoidant is one of the most profound forms of affection you can receive. It is careful, deliberate, and hard-won. When they choose to show up for you in ways they have never shown up for anyone else, it means you are not only the one they love, but the one they trust with their most guarded self. Their actions say what their words may struggle to articulate, that you matter, that you are worth staying for, and that despite every instinct to protect themselves, they have chosen to love you anyway.